you can extract resources. You can extract human resources or physical resources or whatever you want, as long as you control the money. So this is why Bitcoin is so disruptive and so powerful, because it breaks that ability for people to control others. Well, so long as you're holding Bitcoin in your own self-custody and you have your own keys. But you get the idea. It really transforms the entire landscape of the world. And the best part is that it is inevitable. So even if we didn't do anything, this will come to pass. A Bitcoin standard will come to pass because there is no alternative. There's no way a government can save the fiat currency.
According to Samson Mow, the fundamental basis of fiat currencies will be put to the test by Bitcoin's continuous increase in value. The rationale behind earning and investing in declining currencies like the peso or yen is called into question as Bitcoin hits previously unheard-of highs of $1 million or even $5 million per coin. Bitcoin provides a revolutionary escape from inflation and economic instability, whereas traditional currencies have consistently depreciated over time. For doubters, Bitcoin's continued strength will be demonstrated beyond a reasonable doubt if it surpasses important benchmarks such as $250,000. Bitcoin's explosive rise from nothing to a multi-million-dollar asset in under 20 years, according to Mow, highlights how inevitable it is in the financial world. In the face of this inevitable digital transformation, fiat currencies face an existential threat due to their declining purchasing power. For more information about cryptocurrencies and digital assets, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications if you find value in this kind of content. So please share your ideas and observations in the comments section below. Enjoy the video and thanks again.
So as Bitcoin number goes up, then it gets harder and harder to have people accept the fiat, because it's more apparent that when Bitcoin is at 1 million or $5 million a coin, do people still want to get paid in pesos or Canadian dollars or yen? I don't think so, right? Like it's difficult to see it now, although as Bitcoiners we see it, going from 0 to 66K or 67, whatever we're at now, it kind of shows you like this thing is rapidly increasing and there's no stopping it. And for other people, I think you have to see it. They'll probably need to see it at 250,000 and higher before that realization dawns on them, because you cannot look at this asset class that's gone from 0 to 250,000 in 20 years and still say, well, it's just a fad, and the fiat currency that's dropped another 100% in value and purchasing power is going to somehow come back, right? There's a point of no coming back. And I think this is a problem that most of the models for Bitcoin price appreciation miss out on, which is they're projecting for decades. I think it's more like 5 to 10 years, if that. And at some point, you just stop accepting fiat, because why would you? Like, when do you stop accepting the German Papier mark, right? You stop at some point. Either you have to reset or use something else, but there is a termination point for fiat currencies. So that is where that goes. But to your other question is, why should we educate governments and politicians on Bitcoin? I think it has to do that we can have better policy come out here to enshrine the rights of Bitcoiners and private property, ownership of property, as we move through this Bitcoin adoption cycle. Because one thing we've learned in past years is that the laws and your rights don't really matter anymore, right? If you take Canada as an example, just a protest induced the government to implement emergency measures, the Emergency Act, which is martial law, right? And well, what rights do you have under martial law? Not many. So anything can be used to attack the population. And the property rights seem to be just an afterthought at that point. But maybe as we work with countries to implement these Bitcoin strategies, we can augment the laws that protect people and protect your Bitcoin. Because there's one thing that's interesting right now, which is, a government can say you have Bitcoin. Maybe they think you did. Maybe you lost it, right? There's the boating accident joke, but what if you really did lose it or was stolen from you, but the government still says you have it and they lock you in a jail or throw you in the gulag? What recourse do you have? Because it's difficult to prove you don't have something. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to better protect Bitcoiners and people in general, because the current laws are not going to cut it. If you look at Bitcoin adjusted for inflation, we haven't really had an all-time high, even though we reached 74, right? That's inflation adjusted for inflation. We haven't hit an all-time high yet. But at the same time, you see all the increasing debt in the US. Just let's look at the US, right? National debt is 35 some odd trillion now. Interest to service the debt is surpassed 1 trillion. So how sustainable is that? There should be a direct correlation between the instability and weakness of fiat and the strength of Bitcoin, and we're not seeing it yet. Gold is rallying, Bitcoin is not rallying. So I tend to believe that there is paper Bitcoin being saturated into the market. And I think Willy Woo and Adam Back had a discussion about, is it through derivatives or is it through ETFs? And Adam seems to think not. But there's more than one way to saturate the market with paper Bitcoin. You can have a FTX style naked selling, like selling Bitcoin that you don't even have to suppress the price. And while yes, you have to have enough Bitcoin to facilitate withdrawals, you can also print other things out of thin air if you have a malevolent actor in this space. Like maybe it's altcoins, right? And you print the altcoins to buy Bitcoin, and you kind of selling Bitcoin that does not exist, but you have enough Bitcoin coming in to meet demands, right? And that would explain kind of why we're stagnant at the 60-ish range, right? Because they're keeping it down, but they can't push it down too much because they still need to buy back to fulfill withdrawals, right? That's my theory. But like, if you ask me, how would I suppress the market? That was how I would do it.
Bitcoin is a philosophical revolution rather than merely a financial innovation. It returns financial power to individuals by freeing money from centralized control. Money becomes a tool for personal empowerment rather than a tool for manipulation. The creation of wealth is also changing as a result of the Bitcoin standard. Bitcoin mining has made it possible for nations with a lot of natural energy to develop creative and sustainable economic models. This change opens the door for a more equitable, decentralized global economy and threatens the supremacy of established financial systems. How do you believe these issues should be resolved? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. To receive daily updates on additional ideas from Samson Mow and other prominent figures in finance and crypto world, remember to hit the notification bell, like, and subscribe. Let's get back and hear his words.
And the interesting thing is a lot of countries or politicians, they look towards the US for guidance. And we saw this with the ETFs. So Hong Kong and Australia, they wanted to wait until the US approved the ETFs, and then they approved theirs. But I think it's going to be the same situation in terms of larger scale Bitcoin adoption at the nation state level. They're going to wait and see what Trump does. And it is very meaningful to have multiple candidates in the race that have talked about Bitcoin and have talked about setting up that strategic Bitcoin reserve. It's somewhere in the order of probably 1 million to 4 million coins. And that's very ambitious. He'll likely move ahead and implement that because Trump likes to do to fulfill his campaign promises. It may not be to the full scope, but he likes to have said, I did that thing that I promised. So if he creates a strategic Bitcoin reserve of even 250,000, that's a big step. And all those other countries that are watching the US will definitely take that as a signal that they should go ahead and move on their Bitcoin strategy. But there's a danger there too, because the first mover always has the biggest advantage. So if you look at the ETFs again as an example, the US has almost 1 million Bitcoin in their ETFs. And then Hong Kong, which launched second, has 10,000 some odd Bitcoin, and Australia has 100 something. You can see, like, if you wait for the US to make the first move in terms of setting up a Bitcoin strategic reserve, you may not have a lot of Bitcoin down the road. And we do see that competition heating up between all these different countries and entities accumulating. So you have, in addition to the ETFs in the US, you have companies like MicroStrategy, Tether, which are accumulating massive amounts of Bitcoin, and other countries mining Bitcoin like Bhutan. So there's just there's not a lot of Bitcoin left, and I think perhaps most governments don't fully understand that it's a limited supply, because in the fiat world, it's all unlimited. You can print as much as you want. But with Bitcoin, there's definitely a point at which you cannot compete it and get a lot of Bitcoin. Like, these groups can only lend out money that can be printed easily, right? Creating the SDR does not exist. And unfortunately, it still kind of can be used as a bargaining chip by giving cheap money to these countries. But Bitcoin makes it so that you don't need that anymore. You can actually take a slow, steady, sustainable path to growth by embracing hard money and utilizing energy to mine Bitcoin. So the whole formula for money has changed. Money is now energy and information because Bitcoin is energy information. So you can mine Bitcoin using geothermal or hydro or whatever you have that previously you could not utilize, right? With oil, it's easy. You put it into a bucket or a barrel and you ship it. But with geothermal, what's the incentive? Unless you want to create some energy intensive industry that uses it on site, there's not much you can do. But Bitcoin changes that. And I think it's going to have a massive effect as countries discover this, that, hey, we're actually a rich country, right? And a lot of the countries that have massive geothermal energy reserves are quite poor relatively. So this whole equation is changing the world, and we'll see that playing out to further make these things, these organizations like the IMF and the World Bank, redundant. Money is a very potent form of control. So he who controls the money controls the people. You can incentivize people to do things like build roads. Like if you can print money, you can make them build roads or go fight in wars or do a number of things. And it's also a way to control other countries too. So if they're dependent on your money, not just in Latin America, but in Africa with the CFA franc, you can extract resources. You can extract human resources or physical resources or whatever you want, as long as you control the money. So this is why Bitcoin is so disruptive and so powerful, because it breaks that ability for people to control others. Well, so long as you're holding Bitcoin in your own self-custody and you have your own keys. But you get the idea. It really transforms the entire landscape of the world. And the best part is that it is inevitable. So even if we didn't do anything, this will come to pass. A Bitcoin standard will come to pass because there is no alternative. There's no way a government can save the fiat currency. It means that you'd have to have massive amounts of restraint and discipline to not print. And we know that's not possible.
Since many nations and policymakers follow the United States' lead, Samson Mow highlighted the important role that American leadership has had in the global acceptance of Bitcoin. He notes that this was clear in the case of Bitcoin ETFs, where countries such as Australia and Hong Kong launched their own after waiting for U.S. permission. Samson believes that widespread adoption of Bitcoin at the national level will follow a similar trend. Other countries may be encouraged to implement their own Bitcoin policies if a leader like former President Trump proceeds with creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which could hold 1 to 4 million coins. Samson cautions against waiting, though. He highlights the difference in accumulation using ETFs as an example. US ETFs own close to 1 million Bitcoin, whilst Hong Kong and Australia lag considerably behind. This demonstrates the benefit of being the first to market, since those who wait may find it difficult to accumulate sizable reserves due to Bitcoin's fixed supply. He also highlights the increasing rivalry between nations and institutions that are aggressively amassing Bitcoin, such MicroStrategy. According to Samson, Bitcoin drastically changes the global financial scene. Bitcoin's scarcity promotes sustainability and discipline in contrast to fiat currencies, which governments can issue whenever they choose. He highlights that nations with abundant undeveloped energy resources, including hydroelectric or geothermal power, can now use Bitcoin mining to revolutionize their economy. That's all for this video. You can also check our other videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.